Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to episode 10 of my Politics 2100 videocast here on YouTube. This is episode I'm calling Apocalyptic Nihilism, Fascism, and COVID Denial. So I'm linking a few different things to an idea that I wrote about last October in a blog post for Politics 2100. And I think it's an idea that has a lot of resonance for what's going on right now in our society overall, and also our politics. And it's a concept that I think fills a gap in our understanding of the politics and the psychology of the far right wing, also other parts of our society, but it is particularly pronounced on the right wing and on the neo-fascist right wing. So apocalyptic nihilism is a concept that other people have used it once or twice. It's not something that's a commonly used term, and I adopted it, and I decided it was a good descriptor of what I was trying to describe, and I think it, as I said before, fills a gap. So the observation comes from, so anyway, apocalyptic nihilism is the idea that, I mean, it's pretty, when you think about it, it becomes self-explanatory. So if you believe in that there's soon to be an apocalypse, soon to be some kind of event that will annihilate existence as we know it, apocalyptic in some form or other, that you will sometimes, I mean, some people in religious traditions, there are the millenarian religions like Judaism, Christianity, other religions have often apocalyptic ideas in them, and sometimes they coat those with a positive valence of the idea that it's going to be a great event. The second coming will be this great event, and it'll be joyful and rapturous. But also, I mean, there's equally or mixed in with that is a sense of foreboding, a sense of darkness. Often figures are brought in to the apocalyptic narrative that are, you know, evil or but anyway, so the not just in terms of individuals, but just in general, the idea that everything is going to blow up or, you know, disappear or, you know, vaporize is a kind of a nihilistic view of, it's kind of the definition in a way of at least a popular conception of what nihilism is, and a nihilistic attitude. So and I think there is a gap. The reason why I'm using this apocalyptic nihilism together as a term is I think there's a gap in our descriptive language for psychology, for human psychology about this particular area of life. And I think it's very, very, I mean, it's not super common, but it's also very, very important in our history, and both the history of religious movements of various millenarian movements of various kinds. And then also, it's not just this sort of abstraction. And I came to see or believe that in observing the political behavior of the right wing today, that they have a sense of that nothing matters anymore. In other words, that nothing, that both logic doesn't matter, but also reality doesn't matter, and that they are willing to follow, you know, the leader often, or in this case Trump, or some conspiracy theorist that is unknown like Q, or so, and they're willing to follow the ins and outs of these abstract and arcane theories and ideas, and that essentially negate the data from their senses, the data that something they might read in a newspaper, that nothing makes sense anymore. So and so it is and also this kind of, in the piece I write about this as well, there is a, I would say normal, but it's not apocalyptic nihilism can come about because of individual psychopathology, individual mental illness of various kinds, and as a state of mind. So, and on the other hand, it can come about because of a mass political or a mass, not just political, but a mass social cultural phenomenon of whatever. Sometimes reality, sometimes there's a reality portion to it. In other words, that literally an earthquake hits, or a hurricane hits, or a series of misfortunes occur. And this, in our world right now, we are dealing with multiple climate-related disasters or catastrophes, as that are real. So, but there are different psychological reactions to that. So, and one of them could be a form of apocalyptic nihilism, could be called doomerism, in some way, or doomerism is one version of apocalyptic nihilism, and which is an explicit saying we're doomed, or whatever. So in other words, so it's explicitly giving up, on any positive resolution to the oncoming apocalypse or the present apocalypse. So anyway, so but to me it seems like I'm trying to understand, in order to understand the disregard for human welfare, both their own welfare to sometimes, and also the welfare of others, definitely, sometimes in the order that the welfare of others and then your own welfare. To understand that, I think you need something like apocalyptic nihilism to understand how, in a time of disruption, in a time of, also encouraged. This is not just, it doesn't spring out, out of people without encouragement. This has been encouraged by misleaders, like Trump, or his copies that now, like, DeSantis or Abbott. So the governors of various GOP-led states. But anyway, so this disregard, to try to understand that, I think the idea that what's energizing in part is the idea of some kind of that they're taking part in a great destructive event, and unfortunately some of these people have a background in evangelical Christianity, where they have long preached and talked about the rapture, or about various the second coming, or so there's a long history of preachers encouraging belief in that kind of thing. So while some may not be explicitly following their religious doctrines currently, there is the sense that an irrational but amazing and colorful event of some kind that's also destructive will occur, and that will be a great event and be wonderful in some way or another. So so anyway, and I also want to just I pointed this out in the piece. I think the concept also works well in describing the activity of both people in military units on a mission to do acts that endanger yourself. In other words, so not exactly suicide missions, but it creates the idea that you're going in as a soldier, and you are going to do something very destructive that may destroy the enemy, which is what your job is as a soldier. So you need to create in your mind a justification for, or in your not solely rational mind, but overall, you need to create a justification and a framework for just how destructiveness can be good, okay, and that how you are going to incite that by your military action of various kinds. So I think the disregard for the idea that basically, with the radical right now, and which is now a large portion of the right wing, and you have tens of millions of Americans who are part of that group now, unfortunately, and they think of themselves, I think, kind of like these soldiers who are going. I mean, maybe they don't call themselves that. Maybe some of them do, and some of the more organized ones, the 3%ers and the Boogaloo Boys, and but the Proud Boys. But but in general, there's a sense that they are throwing themselves against a mythological evil, not necessarily like a real soldier would throw themselves against a specific enemy with specific tactics, but no, they think of themselves as being part of this battle, this grand battle, and that's why, among other things, in polls they say, political violence, that a civil war, it all fits into what the polling says about attitudes that some in the Republican base, the radical right, which is now mostly radical right, or neo-fascist, so that they are preparing themselves for some kind of assault. So assault on what they can perceive to be the enemy, which has been mythologized, which has been demonized, which has been made, and with all the potential for, all kinds of, among other things, anti-Semitic, but other kinds of demonization of Muslim people, demonization of Mexican people, of black people, anyone who doesn't look like the supposedly typical white American. And so so this concept of apocalyptic nihilism, I think, it's a broad concept, but also it's a good description of why the COVID, for instance, why is there such popularity for in doing self-destructive things like mask, like avoiding wearing a mask in the pandemic, or avoiding getting a vaccine in the pandemic. And it's part of this idea that you're throwing yourself against this enemy, okay, which is the liberal elite, also it's kind of protean. It's not just, whatever, pointy-headed, doctors and, lawyers and what have you in Washington and New York or something, but it's also, a combination of different, but they also consort with black people and with Mexican people who are not, the beyond, there's xenophobia, there's a bunch of different things going on there. But anyway, and which is also typical of fascism, this kind of, chimera of different, in the mind, a chimera of different evil, supposedly evil forces that are vague and surrounding you, the supposedly good person who is, baffled by the world and has been enlightened by the leader or by the cult ideology, or the cult oracle in the case of Q, or Q is no longer emitting their Q drops, but anyway, but the surrounding culture of that. So So anyway, so I think in that context, you would, if you thought that basically trying to understand the people who are going to like school board meetings and like this week that happened in Tennessee and in other places, and acting like provocateurs and aggressive disruptors of those meetings and threatening public health officials, you can see that they are, I mean, in a way, and this is, I will do another video about psychosis and psychotic behavior, but it's you can see in this context that if they think that they are involved in some kind of titanic struggle, and that they think they're and they were willing to sacrifice themselves, or sacrifice their, eventually, if for whatever reason, if our society returns to some semblance of civility or public spiritedness, okay, where people recognize that they are part of the same society as each other, and that they should, not, see the other person who disagrees with them as an enemy to be eliminated and to be killed or be, whatever, threatened and harassed before, potentially, if it winds up to eliminationism, which is, destruction, as it has happened in the Holocaust, and also in Rwanda and some, other places, or even in, and controversially to some leftists, but also in, Maoist China, in Cambodia under Pol Pot, in Russia under Stalin. So, but anyway, so the so I think that to understand these people's thinking, or what the background of it is that without that concept of, in my thinking, and you may have a different way of thinking about it, the sense that nothing matters anymore because the apocalypse is nigh, and the apocalypse is not something to, it's not something to be necessarily feared, or, but it's part of your plan, or part of the plan of, in this case, the leadership, unfortunately. So we have a political party, and some observers have pointed this out, these attacks in school boards and things that you were seeing, and this the pitched battle around education and masks and COVID safety right now, and will continue, is wished for and hoped for by the Republican Party, by the leadership of the Republican Party, and also by Donald Trump, and that desire for chaos and desire for is politically, so there is the irrationalism of the apocalyptic nihilism of the foot soldiers, okay, in that fight, which is encouraged by the leadership, is manipulated by the leadership. So this again gets into, and I'll do another video about it, but it gets into there's a distinction in radical right movements made by the psychologist Bob Altemeyer between the followers and the leadership. I should do another video about that. But anyway, there's let's say a manipulation of apocalyptic nihilism by the leadership, and it's criminal, I think, and I think some of it will be prosecutable, I believe, if someone is willing to charge people with the reckless endangerment that is happening politically, and also reckless endangerment of children, which is it's amazingly cynical and psychopathic. But anyway, so but this concept, I think, is helpful in understanding what's going on. So anyway, thanks for listening. I've maybe beat the horse a little bit too much here, or, you know, I'm sorry about the metaphor there, but please let me know what you think in the comments. And also, if you like the video, please like and please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.